Hi, welcome to Numerics Video Blog. I'm your host, Jim Jockel. Today we're going to have a conversation about blockchain. And to start, I want to reference a report from Goldman Sachs titled Emerging Theme Radar, which went to its clients in early December. The report stated, while the Bitcoin hype cycle has gone quiet, Silicon Valley and Wall Street are betting that the underlying technology behind it, the blockchain, can change, well, everything. To discuss that, joining me today, we have Kazu Yokokawa, Director of Financial Research and Technology Division at Nomura Research Institute America, and Richard Johnson, who focuses on equities and financial technology for Greenwich Associates as part of the market structure and technology practices. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Richard, let me start with you. So, Goldman says, blockchain can change, well, everything. So we've always thought about blockchain for conventionally in the realm of Bitcoin, but where are we today, and what are some of the applications that these groups and banks are thinking beyond Bitcoin?
Yeah, so blockchain really took off in 2015. It was the year of the blockchain. Bitcoin had been around for a while, and just to give you some background, what Bitcoin does, it allows you to send money from anyone in the world to electronically over the internet, essentially. So it's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. That got people's interest because the banks started looking at it and saying, well, instead of using Bitcoin, what other kind of digital assets can we put on the blockchain, and can we transfer in the same way? And that's why Goldman has said it can change everything, because anything that you can digitize, you can put on the blockchain, and you can create a trading and settlement system for it. So there's a lot of use cases that people are looking at right now, and we've probably heard about syndicated loans, private shares, things like that, areas where there's inefficiencies in terms of the market, in terms of the trading of it and the settlement. Blockchain can step in and solve those problems. That's why there's so much interest here.
Now, R3, the blockchain startup, is leading a private consortium consisting of about 42 of the world's largest banks. In the near term, thoughts on what they want to try and accomplish to really begin to accelerate this?
They've got a good approach, I think, getting a lot of the banks together. So R3 CEV is focused on private blockchains and not the Bitcoin blockchain. So again, I'm going to compare with Bitcoin. Instead of having a public blockchain distributed ledger database, theirs is a private. That means that the people who access it are going to be by invitation only, or parties to the transaction. So that solves a lot of the confidentiality issues around the Bitcoin blockchain. So they've got the banks involved because these are the main players who are going to be doing these types of transactions, whether it's for syndicated loans or private shares or whatever. They're the kind of banks working with each other. And so I think it's a good step forward. It's a lot of banks to work with. I think they're going to have, it's going to be hard to get everyone to agree to everything at the same time. But I did read recently also that they did a proof of concept with 11 banks using the Ethereum blockchain product to transfer some assets amongst each other. So they're kind of starting off perhaps with some smaller groups and building up slowly towards a bigger effort.
And Kazu, blockchain is a global phenomenon now. Perhaps you can give us some perspective as what is the state of blockchain, not just here in the U.S. From NRI America's perspective, but what about Japan?
Well, so blockchain is also interested got a lot of interest from our audience in Japan too. The last summer, a lot of publications talk about blockchain, and the people in the financial institutions in Japan are knowing what's going on. Because to be honest, not people know about what it was. And then so we're gonna we have some POC has started in Japan, and NRI are also participated in a proof of concept project in Japan too. So a lot of interests are happening in Japan too.
And now, in terms of what is the role that NRI is playing as it relates to blockchain?
Sure. So here in the U.S., what I believe is people who develop ECN or ATS or dark pools, left those ECN dark pools and started to do the innovative technologies, which are blockchain. Mm-hmm. And so they know about the financial institution, what financial institutions are necessary, and also they know about technology, so that those startups of blockchain are working with the financial institution here in the U.S. directly. However, in Japan, we didn't have a lot of ATS and dark pools yet. So we don't have such experts who know both about financial institutions and technology. But we have an expert who know about technology a lot. So as what NRI does is we're going to be an intermediator between the startups who know about technology and also financial institutions, so that the three of us going to work together and to build the good proof of concept project. So one of the examples that we are doing right now is we have started the POC with Nomura Securities in October 2015, and that's for a capital markets, and it's 3-month project. So the reason why we shorten it at 3 months is we don't know about what's the outcome of blockchain. So we have to shorten the POC project as much as possible to see the minimum result. It's still in the process, and then once it's done, and if the output is beneficial to the public, we are happy to share the information with the public. So still it's in the process, but we are happy to share those information with the public.
Well, Richard, a lot of work has been done in terms of from Greenwich Associates, and a lot of research as it relates to some of those innovations. What are some of the things that you've observed in your experience as it aligns with some of the work that NRI is doing?
It's interesting because the space is moving so quickly. We did our first report back in July of last year, so a full 6 months ago, which is a significant percentage of the blockchain lifespan, if you know what I mean. And some interesting stuff came out of it then. It's like we heard that 17% of respondents were currently doing proof of concept type activities, and 46% were planning to do it in the future. So that's still left at that point around 40%, who weren't or saying no to that. I would bet that number's changed significantly now, because as you mentioned with R3 and with NRI, many different companies are now doing proof of concept. I would bet that number's increased to about 100%, and that's something we're going to be kind of redoing this type of survey very soon. The other things we got out of that is like the questions back then in July about can you separate blockchain from Bitcoin? And of course, that question's been answered now. Everyone knows that you can. There are these proof of concepts going on. So the market's evolved a long way, and we think that the position we're in now it's just been changing so quickly. We're looking forward to finding out, doing some more research on this and seeing what more of our client base is thinking.
Kazu, let me turn to you. A lot of private POCs are going on, things that NRI has been working on as well. Perhaps you can give us a little insight as to why institutions are looking at both paths.
Sure. Giving an example of financial institutions such as Nomura Securities, we do the POC with Nomura Securities, but also Nomura Securities is a part of R3 CEV. They joined it last December. I think the financial institutions wanted to get a lot of information from various sources, and they try to create an ecosystem. I think people don't believe that they can do it by themselves at all, and then they want to accelerate the result. They want to get the result as quick as possible. So I think that is a trend.
Richard, let me ask you in the sense of Blythe Masters, notable former JPM, now in the Bitcoin blockchain world, recently has been reporting that regulators are taking a lot more interest in blockchain. What is their interest at this point in time, and is there a regulatory barrier for potential adoption?
So that's one of the very interesting things about blockchain and distributed ledgers. So as I described before, there's a distributed network of participants who are nodes on this. So it could be the different banks who are trading securities with them on the network. But what you can also do is you can add another node, which is a regulator. So you instantly have the regulators have access to a complete record of every transaction and a full audit trail, which is something they don't have in a lot of other asset classes right now. So that makes it, that makes it very, it works very well with regulators when you apply this type of concept. And also I think, regulators have seen what's been going on, and that there's a lot of, a lot of hype and a lot of talk about it, and they want to feel that they're engaged. So you're having a lot more, conversations among regulators, whether it's the CFTC or the SEC and so forth.
Well, clearly, given the budgets, there's definitely funding for both of those institutions coming up via the recent budget. So definitely getting more bodies in seats to investigate interesting technologies.
Yeah. One of the things I think on the regulatory side, one of the things I think was very interesting is that Overstock.com, who I don't know if you know this, but they're quite a pioneer in the distributed ledger space. They have a subsidiary called T0, and Overstock.com registered securities via an S3 filing, so they're going to issue new securities, and they said they're going to use the blockchain, and this was approved by the SEC in December. The S3 was approved. So
Interesting
Moving
change in the
forward.
landscape.
Yeah, that's very interesting because Japanese FSA is also interested in knowing about blockchain, and they issued a public announcement last December that they're going to study what blockchain is going to impact on the securities market and also banking market. So probably the SEC in US should work with the Japanese FSA more to share the information and to know where it goes.
We can definitely argue that the world is getting smaller and much more collaborative, especially as technology is removing a lot of barriers.
Exactly. So one of the example is in the U.S., ATS and ECN became a boom in 2000, I would say, 2. Is that correct?
yeah, certainly it's really taking off then.
But now the blockchain, Richard, me, and Jim, we are talking about blockchain simultaneously, in terms of the global landscape. So I think the information is, moving from U.S., Europe to Asia, APAC market simultaneously. Very yeah.
And so, a lot of banks now have a lot of incubation centers and things of that nature, looking at a lot of startups. Do you see a lot of money flowing into those startups, trying to investigate some of these new technologies, specifically around blockchain?
Well, there's over $1 billion going into the space so far and counting. Yeah, the digital asset holdings got 55 million. I mean, there's been another 100 million in the last couple of weeks that I can think of. So yeah, definitely a lot of money going towards it for sure, and obviously they expect there's going to be a big payoff. One of these large banks looking into it, I can't remember if it was Santander or BBV, said that the estimated savings are $20 billion per year from blockchain technologies.
Well,
so that's significant.
Yeah, give or take $1 or $2. So Kazu, you also just recently completed a proof of concept around this as well, in addition to the work that you've been doing with Nomura. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's right. So SBI Sumishin, we started to do the proof of concept project with SBI Sumishin, which is more for banking side. So we try to work with actually a startup company called Dragonfly FinTech, which is headquartered in Singapore, and that has produced the first private blockchain in Japan. So we've been working together to come up with a good result from that POC as well. In addition to that, we did, as a research firm, Nomura Research Institute, we do the research. We do the surveys with the financial institutions in Japan. So we did it with about 50 financial institutions last year. And then 30% of them have already taken dedicated team for the fintech innovation. And out of 30%, 4 to 5 financial institutions are working with external partners. So as probably from the start of this video blog, we said that a lot of tractions are happening in U.S. market and Japanese market. So people here in Japan and also in Asia are also interested in know about what's going on.
Well, and so let's talk about what's next, specifically for Greenwich on this topic, as well as NRI. So, Richard, I'll start with you. What's on deck?
So everyone's looking at this, as we just talked about. Everyone's looking into it. I think what Greenwich is very good at is about getting the pulse of the market, talking to the hundreds of buy-side contacts we have, and the hundreds of sell-side contacts we have, and figuring out what people are thinking and what direction the market's going to go, what's going to take off next. So what we want to do, and we want to kick off another study very soon, is focus on a few specific use cases and really dig down into details. And I think a lot of the conversation has been very high level, blockchain. But let's think about it. Let's address the syndicated loans market. How exactly would that work? What do the people in that space think about it? What would the savings be? Collateral management is another area we're looking into. We think that could be one of the areas that takes off initially. So essentially using the blockchain as a distributed record of of the collateral applied to different trades and so forth. So that's another area we're going to be looking at.
One other question before I get to you, Kazu. We were talking mainly about the banks. Where do we see the role of the buy side in this innovation? Are they just going to be ultimate consumers, or do they have a seat at this discussion table right now?
I think we're beginning to hear more about that now. For the most part, understandably, it started in the banks. We're talking about the trading of these types of products. But when it comes to custody, I mean that's another area where the custodian banks, which are often more buy-side type of institutions, are looking at blockchain.
The Northern Trust, the State Street.
State Street, exactly. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. And for you, Kazu, what can we expect in the near term from NRI Americas and NRI back in Japan?
Sure. So as we mentioned that if there is any information that is beneficial to the public, we are happy to share it with the public. So one of the examples that we are doing currently is we issue a regulatory report, a monthly report, and then we distribute to more than 1,000 senior managers in Japanese market, and then we're going to talk about what the blockchain is, and we try to educate the market, because this is not just one financial institution doing. This is what markets should do, and also we are happy to do more POCs if the clients want us to work with us, and then also want to work with the like a Greenwich Associate more, because we think that this is very innovative, and we have to share the information, and we have to, as I said, create an ecosystem. So that's benefits to all of us.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming, and most importantly, where can we see? I know I saw the announcements on your website. What is the website address? Just so everybody knows, we'll make sure it's on the bottom of the screen too.
So www.nri.com.
Okay, thank you. And Greenwich Associates is
Greenwich.com.
And the city of Greenwich hates you for that. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much. And of course, as always on the Merck's Video Blog, we want to talk about the topics that you always want to talk about. Please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date. And please be sure to look up our grateful guests, NRI Americas, as well as Greenwich Associates, for more information about the information that they're bringing to the marketplace as well. Thank you so much.